I want to talk about the strategies for reading that will help you get through material as you continue your college career and hopefully after that, as you continue a life of learning and growing. Um, now, I have 8 strategies, and they all begin with the letter S. I'm sure that for some of these, there's probably a better word, that doesn't begin with S that I should have been using. But I really think that if I have changed a word like that so that I get all S's, it's really not a big leap. They all seem to kind of work. The words make sense. And, it helps me remember, 8 S's for strategies for reading. And that way I can just talk to somebody right then and there, extemporary, if they want to discuss this. But anyway, I, I'm going to go ahead and go through these 8 strategies quickly. And I just want to say that, um, even if you just are able to practice and remember a few of these, they do help you. They can really help you. Just be able to use your time management and to be able to do something faster than you would have done otherwise, and still take away from that activity the things that you need to take away with it. I mean, so just as a quick aside, this is all about helping us develop time management in terms of productivity in learning at college or for lifelong learning. And we should just go ahead and run with the assumption that your life, my life, that life is not going to get any slower or any easier for us. All right. Now, I might actually, for some of us, we might actually have an opening up of activities where it actually does slow down a little bit. But I have been waiting for that to happen, and it just hasn't. So, and I run across most people that are really achieving a lot and just committed to oh, what's the word I want? Life is going to be busy, and it stays busy. You graduate, you get a job. That's huge. You're learning about the job. You're growing there. Then maybe you have a relationship that's happening. You have family members that you may be needing to interact with. You've got, as soon as you start accumulating things, it's the maintenance of the things. Um, making sure that house is being maintained, or the car, or the lawn, or whatever it is. And in today's economy, maybe you're working two two jobs, a full-time job and a part-time job, or if you want a meaningful life and you're stuck in a boring job, maybe you have something exciting you're doing on the side and that's important to you. And if you have children, that's huge right there, huge. Pets will take up time. I mean, there's just poof. So life gets busy and it stays busy. And if you decide that you're not going to do something yet, but you'll wait till you have more time, maybe to read a book or to, there's other things that can fit into that category. But here specifically for reading, if you're thinking, well, yeah, it'd be great to read a book a week, but how do I do that? Because usually it takes a month to read a book, even if I just read for 10 minutes or 15 minutes a night. But even if I were just doing that, how will I find the time to do that? You know, okay, all right. So let's develop strategies that will allow you, when the time is right, for you to double the activities, to get double the things done in that time frame, right? Or maybe not double, but more than regular. You know, for example, one of these strategies here is sound reading, which is listening to audiobooks. That is maybe the one most important strategy here if you want to increase the amount of material you move through and the way you keep on learning. But you do have to discipline yourself first in linking your phone up to you know an an app that can read audiobooks for you, and then getting your library card in order, your public library card, linking your phone to your public library, learning how to check out audiobooks from your library and download it to your phone. See, I highly recommend that way because it's free. I'm sure you can do it through Audible, but then you're paying. But anyway, once you get that stuff done and you learn how to just do the logistics of sound reading, then when you're cooking supper, when you're cleaning your house, when you're doing laundry, when you're folding laundry, when you're driving from one place to another, when you're walking between classes, when you're exercising, and you're going to be running in place, or jogging or doing something that allows you to listen. Of course, if you're playing a basketball game with someone, that doesn't work. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, you'll be able to recognize that there's some things that you do physically, like drive a car, and then you can also obviously listen to something at the same time and do both well. Do both well. Now, there are some activities that you do that don't overlap well. Like you can't really, listen to two audiobooks at the same time. You can't study for, a math exam or read that English assignment or, work on that chemistry homework and listen to an audiobook at the same time. Your brain is trying to focus on semantic content that is coming in two different directions, and the content is different. And very, very few people could do that, and I can't. And I'm assuming that you probably can't either. But when you're if you buy a new a new old house or whatever, and you're remodeling it and you have to paint the walls or something, yeah, obviously you can listen to a book, right? It's just, do you want to? And the question would be, well, why why would I want to do this all the time? Because when you get the right book and you have strategies for the ways you are picking these books, and you have maybe a system of general learning that you work through over the course of one calendar year, like history, literature, science. The fourth one might be religion or philosophy or ethics or law. The fifth one might be business or trading or finance. And you find stories that grip you. Like, some of these overlap. Like for finance, the biography of John D. Rockefeller Sr., oh my goodness, it's called Titan. It's written by Ron Chernow. And what a book that was, right? And you learn so much about monopolies, about Standard Oil, about all that. And it's also teaching you about history, so it overlaps. See? But this is a system of general learning that you can understand, you can learn, you can do. And then once you realize how you are growing in the interior space, and you are getting more information in you that allows you to learn, to see more patterns, to see more connections, to make conclusions that you wouldn't have been able to make otherwise. After 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years of this, you have I truly believe that's where your real education is. I think a lot of us are going through college and are just getting certified for a vocation. We don't call it a vocational school, but that's really what it is. You're earning the right to compete for a certain type of job. And are you really being educated in a broad way? I hope you are, and I'm not saying that no college does that. I'm just saying we're losing sight of that general education vision, because it's so hard to land a specific job if all you have is just a general, liberal, bachelor's of arts in the humanities degree. Well, how would you go into medicine for that, or engineering or whatever you might want to go into, when everyone else going into it, so many other people have a very specific degree title that might make them compete better, for that position. Well, I digress. But anyway, what I'm saying is the way to lifelong intellectual growth is through reading. And that's a huge element. And you are going to, if you want that, then you are going to have to discipline yourself to start reading today, because tomorrow is never going to be less crowded than today. Let's just run with the assumption that you are never going to have more time at your disposal. So if you really want it, you need to do it when you're busy, when you're carrying 5 classes. Because if you learn how to do it when you're busy, Nothing will stop you. You see what I'm saying? All right. So here are the terms I want you to know. One is standard reading. That's just when you have a book and the way you regularly read. The book is such so that it's not overly challenging. It's just it's you're understanding it fine, and you're able to move along those lines and to get through those pages so that you are not constantly reminded that you're working through a text. Okay, think of a swimming pool. When that water is just the right temperature and is clean and clear, and you dive in, and if you have basic swimming skills, very soon you forget about the water because it's so easy. It's so easy to be in, to move in, to uh, swim in, right? But what if that water got somehow thicker? Like let's just say it's some other type of water. Like well, the analogy is Jello, right? I mean, you jump into a swimming pool of Jello, you're not going anywhere, right? I mean, you're like, oh, it's so hard to move, right? That's not your standard, and you are noticing that it's hard to be in that pool. You see what I'm saying? I mean, let's make that water freezing. You jump in there and whoa, you notice the water. So the way to recognize your standard reading is to think of those books that are just, as you read them, you're able to forget that you are actually in the act of reading because the words, you understand them, you understand the flow, you understand the makeup of the book, you understand the content, and you're never having to stop to reread something or to look up a word or you don't put it down out of frustration, right? So that's standard reading. And that's not really a strategy. It's a baseline, right? Now, slow reading is when you have to either slow way down because you're dealing with content that you have to understand at a deep level. Like if you were to read Shakespeare or Plato, you need to slow down and you need to look at every word, right? If you were to read poetry and perhaps you need to read it aloud in order to understand that it's not just the content that you're getting, but the act of engaging with the words is part of that experience. And it's good to read it slow. I mean slow, right? To think about it carefully, to meditate on it, right? So there's slow reading, standard reading, slow reading. I already discussed sound reading, which is basically listening to an audiobook. And then a summary reading is where you do summary reading where you realize I'm just not going to be able to read this book. I don't have time for this big thing, and give me the cliff notes, right? Or let me just read a book report. And as a person who's trying to live a life that's inundated with information, we're in a unique time in history, and there's our literacy levels are so high in terms of history, the long view of history, and not only are so many of us so skilled in literacy, we have a tsunami of content coming at us. It's overwhelming the amount of texts that are being produced and developed and given us in the form of magazine articles, newspaper articles, movies, documentaries, music, podcasts, websites, books, journals, newspapers, TV broadcasts. Those are all on my definition texts, and they're all coming at us. They're overwhelming. This video, it's overwhelming. In terms of just more content creation. Here I am creating a 30-minute text, and I'm doing it almost at the whim of oh, it's time. I better, maybe I can work in a video now and get it done, and poof, there it is. Do you realize how impossible this would have been maybe 70 years ago for the vast majority of Americans, and then 140 years ago, 140 years ago? Come on, that's so. So sometimes just because it is too much. If you have a whole pile that you're trying to get through, maybe you read a summary. You find a summary online. You learn how to find good book reviews or book reports on it online, written by professionals or by carefully written. They don't have to be professionals, but just you get the synopsis, right? So that's summary reading. And we do this. We do this all the time. Well, not all the time, but you watch a movie and you realize you probably can fast forward through half of it because the time, right? And you do want to finish it, but well, I know at least I do that. Oh, about half the movies I watch, they're moving through fast forward for about 20 or 30 minutes of it. Anyway, um, summary reading. Now, I do recommend that for research. I highly recommend it because as you do a search, through the databases for with your keywords, and you find 20 journal articles that look like they're related somehow to your topic, and then you find then you go back into the works cited or the reference list, the sourcing of those articles, and you find books titles, and you can maybe get 30 books, 20 journal articles. How are you supposed to get through all of this? 2/3 of those. Just read the abstracts. Find book reviews. Okay? When you're learning the conversation of something, you don't of that topic of you don't have to read every word yet, or you don't have to actually read the whole thing yet. Okay? So far we've covered 4, right? Standard reading, slow reading, sound reading, and summary reading. Now let's go ahead and move on to the other 4. Now these other 4 actually have to do with holding the book in your hand. Okay. Now this is not an S that I have here, but I call that sight reading. Okay. So sight reading is just the handheld book, the handheld magazine. Sure, ebook, whatever. But you're actually with your eyes. You're reading the words. Anything that's not sound reading. Now, with this is you're trying to move through that material, right? Now, section reading. So this is the 5th S, right? We had standard, slow, sound, summary. Here's section reading. If I had a book here, I should have brought a book. And if I had better video recording equipment, I could just pause it and go get a book and come back. But anyway, section reading is you have this book that you need to read, and you are, you decide to look at the table of contents, and you say to yourself, I'm going to read the first chapter. And you read the first chapter. And, if the book gets you and you want to continue on without skipping anything, okay, just read it regularly or whatever. But sometimes books they cover something a certain way, and their chapters are actually illustrations of the same concept, but standalone stories. I just finished 2 books like that where one was looking at famous clocks. Okay, he wanted to investigate the notion of time, the cultural views of how we measure time, how we think of time, and so he picked 12 famous clocks throughout history. Like Big Ben was one of them. The modern atomic clock was another one. Okay, so once I read the intro, or sometimes the first chapter really serves as an intro, but sometimes you have a book and it has a standalone intro. It's just titled intro. There's usually a lot you can pick up there in terms of the structure of the book. It's some of the main things it's doing. But anyway, I got his basic thesis, the goal of the book, the way he was going to work it, and then I read the first chapter and I realized that was pretty good. It was interesting. And then I read the second one. It's like that was good too, but I already got it. These chapters are just discrete or standalone examples of his major idea. So at that point, I could have just read maybe 2 or 3 other chapters and left the other 6 or whatever alone, and I would still walk away with a pretty good idea of what he was doing. You see what I'm saying? I might not have the details of that clock in Koenigsberg or whatever, but I know what he did in the book. You see what I'm saying? So there's another book I have sitting on my shelf, and it's called The Measure of Everything. Okay, pretty good title, good jacket art. It had a good review. I did summary reading on it, and now I got it, and I'm looking through it, and I'm realizing these are discrete chapters. They're standalone chapters, in the sense that once you finish one chapter, you're done with that story or that example. You're moving on to another. In this case, tool of measurement. So, one chapter might be all about the calorie. The other one might be all about, the English pound. The other one might be all about, the penny or something, the way you measure money. And, they're all independently interesting, but you get the idea of the whole book just by reading a couple chapters, right? Now, that's probably the best way to do section reading, okay? But see, other times it's a story, and the author is expecting you to move through the book very linearly from the cover to the cover, because it's a narrative. It's got its arc plot and all that, in terms of maybe a biography or an account of history or whatever. But you might be able to realize, if I just read half of every chapter, I'm going to get this, right? I'm going to be able to move through this book twice as fast, and I'm going to get the general idea, okay? So section reading is doing that. Now, sometimes when I'm reading academic journal articles, I've got one right here printed out. I know what I can find in the first 3 pages and the last pages, the 3 last pages. So sometimes I'll do section reading that way, where I'll read the first 3 pages, looking for things like, a clear articulation of the goal or the guiding question or the topic of the article, the review of lit, the conversation, the contribution, the schematic, and then I'll look at the end to see a review of the data, and maybe a discussion of further research, or the discussion section at the back of the article. So I'll do section reading with that as well. People do section reading all the time with newspapers. They go through their favorite section. So this is not necessarily a new idea. Okay, but let's talk about the 6th strategy, which is skip reading. Okay, skip reading. Skip is kind of like section reading, but you're doing it in a less structured way. Literally, just imagine I'm reading a book, right? And I start on the first page. And what would you say if I skipped every other paragraph? That's skip reading. There it is. Okay. Now, it's never that clean. In other words, if I were to use skip reading, I would actually be combining 2 of these. Okay. For example, the 7th strategy is skimming. All right, skimming is where you are trying to see every line, but you are moving very quickly, and you might just be you're literally, your eyes are kind of hopping on the line, and there's no like smooth movement here. Maybe you're zigzagging down it, or you're going from one spot to another down the page, but you're just picking up major words and phrases and names, and you're kind of piecing it together in your mind. Now, if you were just to do skimming, the only thing that would really be good for would be is if you're trying to find something, that there's a word or a key phrase or a quote or something. Like, pretend you've read a book already, right? And somewhere in there's a statistic or something you want to use in an essay you're writing, but you can't remember where. You just got this vague sense. Maybe it's in the back of the book. Okay, so there's just section, and then you don't even know where to start. But you open this thing up, and you really want to find this, right? And so you're letting your eyes jump all over that page because you're trying to find what you remember of that quote. You know what I'm saying? That's really skim reading. And if you're doing it just alone like that, it's because you're trying to find something you remembered, or maybe you didn't read the book before, but you're hoping this book mentions something that you're studying. So maybe you're trying to find that special word or that phrase or that concept that you want to research, and you're wondering if this book is going to be useful to you in that. And so you're like skimming some of these pages. I said skim, but I shouldn't have. Well, no, skim is right. You're skimming because you're kind of like, you're not jumping big hops, but you're looking at one line, just a section of it, and then you're looking at another section of a line, another section of a line. So, let me illustrate it here. I don't know how well my camera is going to do this, but anyway. So, when you're skimming, you're just boom, 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 boom. You're hopping around. You're just now. Sometimes you might actually start on a line, okay, and you might do something like this, and you're just kind of like, you're not worrying about the peripheral edges, right? And you're just kind of, okay, that's a type of skim reading. Or sometimes you could do a zigzag, like you kind of look at this area right here, right? And then you jump to this area, and then you jump back here, and you jump back here, and so you're doing sort of a hop, okay? Those are zigzags, and boy, it's been a long time since I've taught all of that stuff. I used to teach reading strategies. Oof. Wow, 15 years ago, and actually put together a book and a practice manual that I haven't used in a long time. But anyway, that would be skimming. All right. Now here's a little bit of digression. I'm remembering what I used to do. If you were actually looking for a word or a phrase in, say, a journal article or a book, and you're like desperate to find it, and you can't do an internet search on it, or for whatever reason, whatever, the better our search tools are getting, and our laptops and our digital textual experience is getting, the less these strategies are something you have to employ. But you know what I realized is, if you ever have to do that and you're trying to find where that stat is, or that quote or whatever, divide the page in four and divide it in quadrants, and don't think too hard about it. Just tell yourself, what quadrant was it on? And you might realize it was on the top left. Your mind is somehow telling you it's in the top left. Or maybe it's the bottom right, or maybe it's the bottom left, or whatever. It's one of those. Divide the page in four and just say, where do I remember seeing that? Oh, it was up here. It was in this corner. Okay, and then flip through the pages of that book and look only in that corner, in that area. You'll be surprised how many times you get it. That's when you live a life like mine. I mean, you'll take any sort of little joy you can get, and maybe that was a little joy. When you find it, oh yeah, there it is. Wow. How did my mind know? But anyway. Well, that's skim reading. Now, speed reading is something else. I do not recommend speed reading unless you practice it diligently for a while and you really kind of know what you're doing. Okay, these other ones, I highly recommend summary reading. I even more highly recommend sound reading. Section reading, skimming, and skipping are really good, especially when you mix them up together. When you realize that you can read 5 lines and then skip 5 and read 5, or read a paragraph, okay, and then skip a paragraph and read another paragraph. You're doing section reading, see? But then as you skip that second paragraph, skim it, right? So now you're doing section and skim, section and skim, section and skim, and you'll be surprised at how good you can get at that, how fast it can go, and how much you'll get out of that. Okay. Now, whenever you're skimming a paragraph and you realize there's something interesting here or important here, slow down, read it, right, and then move on. And so, a lot of these things are just a mix of the strategies. But for speed reading really is, okay. Let's see if I can get this in here. Well, you are really trying to read as much as you can of the text, but you're just reading faster than you normally would. So you have to go back to your standard rate. And you have to be pushing it so that you feel your eyes you have to feel your eyes moving faster than their comfort zone. But you still are reading every line. You're trying to read every line, you're just trying to read it faster. I mean, duh, right? But that is speed reading. But it's harder to do than you think, because if you go too fast, you don't get anything. I mean, it's hard, but you don't put things together up here, you don't recognize the words. But to see the analogy, just read something as you would read it regularly. More than 20 seasons after its debut as a short on the Tracy Ullman Show in 1989, pundits, politicians, scholars, and journalists, okay, now read it faster. More than 20 seasons after this, you see how it falls apart? Okay, because I was going too fast. What I'm saying is, speed reading works only if you realize it's like weightlifting. And when you get onto that, when you get onto that bar, right, you feel like you have a natural, the first thing to do is find out just how strong you are. So you just experiment, take weights off, put them on or whatever, and just see what you can do, right? So you're trying to find your standard rate, right? But then to increase that, you just add 5 or 10, lift for a week or two, add 5 or 10, lift for a week or two, whatever, until you're probably going to hit a natural limit. So speed reading, you have to grow like that as a speed reader, and it takes a lot of practice, and it really does take about a year's worth of dedication, and you have to be able to accept your natural limit. Okay, so yeah, I remember I used to teach speed reading again way back when. I don't really believe in it anymore as much as I used to. What happened is I ran into these concepts of, well, wait a minute, if you go too fast, it's not worth it. And if you're reading something and you really you're enjoying the act of reading, there's no point in trying to speed read. Um, you know, and most effectively, the 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 increments that you speed up to are not as great as you think. I mean, you might be able to read maybe 15% or 20% faster than usual, and because if you're reading twice as fast, you're not going to get it. And I would be talking to students, and they would be like coming up with these astronomical words per minute, and I'm like, there's just no way. Part of it was the book that we were reading was very easy to speed read, but um, they would, then you're not. When I would teach it as a group, very people in the group would try to start competing with each other. That is anathema to that. That'll kill it. You don't you do not compare yourself with others when you're trying to do that, because you're unique, and you're going to be able to do only what you can do given the physical makeup of your eyes. I'm literally talking about the muscles in your eyes, your ability to focus. I mean, all of that comes into play when it comes to speed reading. And so, I don't know how beneficial that really is. I just know that when I mention these strategies, almost always someone says, well, what about speed reading? What about speed reading? And I'm like, well, I would say it's dubious at best, actually. I mean, I know how to do it, but I would rather do section and skim reading. Like, what I said about the paragraphs, um, or I would actually like try to do a combination of certain types of skimming. Okay, than just try to speed read something. But the concept is out there. There are manuals to use. If you are interested in learning how to speed read, I can provide some material for you and some training for you. But um, I don't know if you want that or not. I don't even know if yeah. I mean, I can. It's there. It's just you'll have to practice these, and then you know what, you're fully capable of making up your own mind of these. But yes, eight words to remember. I'll give them to you again, and then I want to thank you for watching. I know I went over my. I didn't realize I was going to take 33 minutes to talk about this, but standard reading, slow reading, sound reading, summary, section reading, skip reading, skim reading, and speed reading. Thank you for watching.